And we are back with plenty of Henty. You're on, my boy.
Wonderful. Hello, world. Yes. Now, I don't know how you are this morning. I know how I am, and I certainly know how he is. And as for Stuart, well, yes, he's all right as well, actually. That's the three of us, the three musketeers, I suppose you could say. Who wants to be D'Artagnan?
Well, it's obviously you.
You can know, all right, I'm D'Artagnan.
You're young and sprightly, you see.
Yes, indeed. Well, of course, my French is immaculate. I was with some French people yesterday, and they commented. I said incroyable at one moment.
That's why you've got your wonderful name, D'Artagnan.
Oh, sacré John D'Artagnan Henty. However,
what was he then? What's the other
he
one?
was the one on the horse.
No, what was the other one then?
Oh,
the fat one on the horse.
I beg your pardon.
The fat one.
That's you mean Keith?
Porthos.
Yes.
Porthos.
Poor horse is all I
What
can
was
say.
it? Porthos, Amos, and...
Now, behave yourselves, please. But it's meant to be a serious moment, as all our regular viewers will know. At 11 o'clock on a Wednesday, if you want to be serious, look elsewhere. However, what I want to do today, as I always seize this opportunity, first of all, I'd like to mention that I am wearing a tie that actually got a reaction in the street within the moment I left my house. A woman actually ran in the other direction from me. No. I was wearing this tie and she said, "Nice tie." And I said, "Thank you. Max Miller." She said, "Who?" And that's the trouble. We're coming to that in a moment. Who was Max Miller? Well, you know, he knows, I know, but we're going to tell people a little bit more about Max, but largely about, well, I have an admission to make, Keith. I am, you may not know this, but I am actually a lesbian. No, I'm sorry, a thespian. Sorry.
Yes.
Is that a list? Oh, dear.
It'd get you anywhere.
No, I am a thespian. I know. Quiet, please. Dear heavens. As they say in radio terms, don't smile, laugh, because in radio terms it's no good smiling because they can't see. Exactly.
Yeah. You're the best dressed man on radio.
Certainly here today. I don't know though. It's a very nice tweed jacket you had and a scarf. I love the hat too. I haven't got a hat, and you should. Well, you've seen his hat, yes.
My hat's famous.
It is famous. Don't ask why, though, ladies and gentlemen. It's been left in many strange places, I think we can safely say. However, now the theatre.
Right.
I mentioned this today because you may not realise this, apart from being a thespian. You might say, well, what prompted this, John? And the answer basically is that I was at school and they recognised there was some potential there, but they weren't quite sure what it is. And to be honest with you, we're still trying to find out what that potential is. Today, 80 years on, oh dear. But anyway, you see, what happened was, we were having French. You see how you use that word incroyable. That was French.
It was lovely ring to it.
Oh, it's not really what you say. It's the way you say it.
Formidable.
Incroyable, Saint-Paul-Popette, which is even better. However, our French master, who was a useless man called Mr. Shotton, never did like the man. He spent the entire class writing translations of words all over the board, which we then had to copy. And this went on for hours and hours and hours. And he wondered why we all misbehaved. I mean, we got fed up. On one occasion, there was a situation out in the corridor. We had a corridor outside. And he went to see what it was. And unfortunately, someone had put something over the door and it landed on top of it. Mr. Shotton was not actually amused, and it ruined the rest of the French lesson. However, there was another master called I.A. Evans, who was the head of the junior school, and he was very good at French, to such an extent that he even wrote little plays for his pupils to learn basic French. I will get to the point in a moment. Well, now, the thing is, one of the plays was called L'Inspecteur arrive, which means that the inspector arrives, and it was an inspector at the school. And so we formed on stage. He invited me to take part, and we were on this stage in what we call Big School. And we went through this, and I had one line, actually. I think they were playing safe at the time. And I was given the role of the football, or should I say, the classroom sneak. And there'd been some misbehaving, and the inspector said in French, of course, who was it? And all the class are supposed to look around and pretend it wasn't them. But the little sneak, me, with my 2 words, I had to stand up and say, "C'est Pierre." And then they all set upon me, and there was a big riot on the stage.
Oh, wow,
Now, I did
wonderful.
that so well that then I was invited to appear in The Admirable Crichton. You may have heard of that. It's a play,
Indeed.
a wonderful play, many, many wonderful parts. And although I don't want you to take this personally, I had a rather small part. We won't go into that. And I was the coachman, I think, whose name was Thompsit. How I remember things, I do know, because I couldn't remember my lines, but 80 years on, I can
You
still
remember the-
I know. So I had this one part. I liked it because I had to dress up and everything. And I came on the stage at one point, and I think I may have said, "The carriage awaits," and then I had to shuffle off, and that was probably the length and depth of it. So that was it. That was the start of it. And then a choir master, a rather charming man called Odom, Odom, he was forming various operas. And we always did, of course, Gilbert and Sullivan, like everybody did. Now, by this time, I was still talking rather like this, you see. So I got a part, and I hesitate to say this with sensitive ears, but I actually was a schoolgirl from Titipu. Now, that's a very strange name. I don't know where Gilbert and Sullivan found that. We don't really want to go into that. So I was a schoolgirl from Titipu, and I quite enjoyed that. Comes a train of little ladies from scholastic travels free. So I enjoyed that. And then, of course, the worst thing happened. My voice broke. So then there was a production of The Pirates of Penzance, and I was a pirate, and a very good pirate, a pirate of Penzance, which was a wonderful opera, and led me on to so many great things. The end of this story is, how does it come round to theatre? Well, I then joined the Croydon Operatic and Dramatic Association, CODAR, and they put on performances at the Grand Theatre. We've got there at last, the Grand Theatre in Croydon, which was a lovely, lovely theatre. And what a joy that was. I had an entire week there in this theatre, grease paint, the whole works, overacting, of course. I was again a pirate in The Pirates of Penzance, complete with I tried to find one of these things for mask, for the eye, but I couldn't find one at home, unfortunately. But I was overacting like fury. The Croydon Advertiser, which I joined later in a few years on, Croydon wrote of this particular version of Pirates of Penzance. They gave everybody's name because obviously people buy newspapers if they see their name in the paper. They didn't know my name, but they did actually say in this review that they rather enjoyed the overacting of the third pirate on the left. And that, my friends, was me, and I've been known as the third pirate on the left evermore. I then went into Oklahoma, which was wonderful. Oh, Oklahoma, that was I was a cowboy on that. Exactly. And I mean, that was my career basically on theatre. But I loved theatre, basically backstage, to the point where I even went on in Croydon and formed the Save the Grand Theatre Society because it was about to be demolished, basically, like most theatres sadly were. Which brings me on to another subject in a moment. Have I said too much?
No.
All right. Okay.
No.
Just wind me up. This man will wind me up.
I wonder if I could just intervene by saying I trod the boards once myself.
I was going to ask you.
In Julian Slade's Free as Air.
Oh, not Salad Days.
No, Salad Days was the other one. This one was Free as Air, in which I played a racing car driver.
I can imagine.
And I can remember the first lines of the first song.
There you are.
In the hope of going steady, I've a ring that I keep ready for any girl who comes along. She appears each time like Jack in the Box, but she always ends up back in the box. Where is it my romances all go wrong?
Wonderful. Well,
girls have got me under their skin, and I've got girls under my thumb, till somebody else comes butting in. And who's that somebody? Mum.
Wonderful. Oh,
Brush, you
no.
are barking up the wrong bush. You're barking up the wrong bush, not the wrong tree.
Sure, you didn't know that this man had that sort of talent, did you?
Absolutely, yes.
Well, I knew, and now the entire world knows. Anyway, where do we go from there? Because the Grand Theatre was about to be demolished, and we formed this society, and we were successful. We went through the streets of Croydon with banners and the rest of it saying, save the theatre, etc., etc. And what happened? They pulled it down. Of course, they pulled it down. Now, that was a rather depressing situation, and it doesn't help when you end up years and years and years later in another town, stroke city, where there is a wonderful theatre, which brings me to the point of my talk today. About time I got there, I heard someone cry, thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, so what happened was yesterday, in fact, it was Monday, because today is Wednesday, just to be clear about that. On Monday, I was invited a very short notice to attend the Brighton Hippodrome in Ship Street and thereabouts in Brighton. I was invited as a member of the Max Miller Appreciation Society, of which we have discussed before, and this is the badge associated where have I got it on? Oh, no, there it is. That's the Max Miller Appreciation Society badge. I was invited there, and I was asked then to invite other members, which I did, but it was very short notice. This was a company called Matsim Properties, who take on the whole business of refurbishing the Hippodrome. They bought it, and so far, in 3 years, they have spent £5 million. And inside, it is wonderful. I can't show you pictures today, but I will say this, that on my Facebook, and I do have a Facebook, there's a whole little item about it in there, which you might find interesting. And purely by chance, and I don't know, dare I mention the Argus on this?
You may. Yes,
A brief mention, and hats off to the Argus, because in today's edition, Wednesday's edition, there is actually a whole little report on this event at the Hippodrome in Brighton, and saying that members of the public are now welcome to go there too, and that will be probably on Thursday or later this week. And I would strongly recommend, if you have the opportunity and you love theatre, you should go. Now, what was the purpose of this meeting on Monday, you're going to ask? And in all honesty, I'm not entirely sure I know the answer to that. I went there and was happy to go there. I'm welcomed with a small glass of and a nibble, which was lovely. No arguments there. And it's a vast auditorium, as you will, I hope, see eventually. It is wonderful, and they've done miraculous things there in those 3 years. Also, there was a gentleman who I don't think has been on Mirador television. He's been on practically everything else. His name is Fatboy Slim. Now, he's a raving, wonderful disc jockey. He handles all the discs and stuff like this. And he's obviously very popular in Brighton, and he's known to the Matsim people, which is important. Then the mayor of Brighton was there as well, Jackie someone. She was there as well, full regalia, chain. She saw my tie. She quite liked it. Was envious, I think. And in addition to that, there was someone even more important, whose name is so important that I've actually forgotten who it was. Oh no, it was Caroline Lucas, the Green former MP, because actually she's standing down, I believe. We won't go into that today. Right. So there we were, all standing around and standing around and standing around. And I'd been in PR, as you have, and I thought, well, why are we here? And I think the mayor may have been. And anyway, it's not for me to challenge what was going on. I just didn't quite understand why we were there. Surely there would be some sort of chance for the mayor to say something, and how she really welcomes what's happening, etc. It didn't actually happen. And the man who did speak was one of the guys from Matsim, and he just explained very briefly, and this is the worrying bit, that they have spent £5 million. They've done all this work, and the evidence was there. And he was effectively saying, but basically, that is it. We have planning permission now for a whole redevelopment of the area, okay? And unless the council sees wisdom, and here we go with councils again, we all know the chances of this.
Absolutely.
This is Brighton Council, not necessarily the ones in this town. However, if they don't give the okay to this, then by and large, I mean, he was sort of suggesting that's it, And we all know what happens. I mean, if you've been to Brighton recently, and no doubt you have been to Brighton recently, and you've looked out towards the sea, what do you see there? A ruin of a pier, the West Pier. And that was actually, there was a Save the West Pier, wasn't there? And everybody got so excited. And then along came other people and said, well, you know, you shouldn't do that with it. You should do this with it, or that with it, or do, and on and on and on. And guess what? It crumpled into the sea. Exactly. An act of God on this occasion, I think. Anyway, so there we are. So in other words, Maxim Properties have said, look, we spent £5 million. The evidence is here. It's your job now to do something about it. And why do you think that they're worried about it? I'll tell you why. Because I believe it's largely in London. There is what they call a theatre trust, which is responsible for the upkeep and maintenance of theatres throughout the United Kingdom, not just necessarily on the South Coast. And they have said, well, we see these plans that they have, which will involve a certain amount of accommodation, maybe some eateries, one small little theatre for comedy. And we don't think that's entirely appropriate. And they have prepared about a 10-page dossier on what they think should be done. And the reason they've done it is because what they want the Hippodrome to return to its halcyon days when it was a magnificent theatre and it was packed every night with the likes of Max Miller. Getting to that point. In fact, Max Miller, as I've said far too frequently, but it is vital, he appeared at the Hippodrome more times than any other performer. And not only that, he was Brighton man, Brighton born, lived there, died there, and should be remembered there. There is a statue, but there should be more. So here we go. In other words, the trust in London, with a few supporters locally, have said, no, you can't do that. It's got to be this. Now, we all know what that's going to mean. It's going to go back to the council. They're going to send it back to someone else. And so it will go on. And who knows what will happen. I know what could happen. And it will be a tragedy. That place will again disintegrate. And heaven knows what would happen then. So there's the concern. It is serious. John being serious for a moment, this is quite worrying. However, would I not love to appear there? I would indeed. I could do my stand-up because I'm working towards that now. Yes. I think I mentioned that to you. Well, I'm working towards a stand-up routine.
Okay.
And I can see myself there, not as Max Miller.
Well, can't we have a Mirador television special night?
I think we should. Yes.
And we can invite people known to us.
Yes, absolutely.
And some people unknown to us.
Well, yes, indeed. We're not proud. We're not proud.
Absolutely not.
No.
Right. That's on our special event list, Joel.
Well, I think that's a brilliant idea. But the trouble is, I'm really not mocking here. I mean, I'm admiring what Maxim has done. And I'm just saying, come along, be supportive of these guys. You know, the £5 million, you can see what they've done. And it's brilliant, as you will see.
Well, I mean, I always accuse people, I mean, particularly people in local government, of being all mouth and no trousers. Yeah. So we will not be all mouth and no trousers. We will make positive efforts to launch John Henty's one-night stand launched at this theatre.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen, and both of you will be invited. So there you are. All right. Okay.
And the dog.
Yes. Oh, and don't forget the dog. Of course, as we all know, if you live in Lewes and you haven't got a dog, we discussed that on another occasion. It's usually the subject is, and you should be very pleased that today we've decided not hot dogs or sausages or meaningless things like that. We're actually talking about something quite serious. And Max Miller, by the way, would have loved this tie. And if I may just, those of you who are curious, probably saying, well, what's on the tie? And the answer is actually, it's a couple of characters voiced by a man that I actually interviewed many years ago, Mr. Mel Blanc. And it's a Tweety Pie and not Bugs Bunny. It's I told a purdy cat creeping up on me. It's Tweety Pie and Sylvester the cat. So it's a lovely, lovely tie. And I think it may well be a Walt Disney tie. I'm not entirely sure. Yes. But back to Max Miller for a moment. Did Max Miller appear? I said he appeared there more time. Have you evidence, John? Because anybody can just sit in front of a screen and tell people this sort of stuff. Show me the evidence. And that's why I brought the bag today.
Right. You noticed going to ask about the bag.
Oh, the bag. The bag. This is absolutely superb. In here I have a copy of a magazine, which is a regular bi-monthly, I think, magazine produced by the Max Miller Appreciation Society in Brighton. Editor is Jack Strutt. And there is the one cover of it showing an illustration of Max Miller at a microphone there. But there is the all-important program from the Brighton Hippodrome. And I don't quite know what year that was, but it was twice nightly, 6:15, 8:30. And just think about that. 6:15 and 8:30. And there are about 9 other acts. And they've all got to fit into probably less than a couple of hours, and then do it all over again.
Yes, it's good old vaudeville or whatever word one puts to it.
Absolutely. Max Miller, of course, supreme. And all he had to do at the end of the show, unlike when he's in London and he used to dash for the train back to Brighton, of course, there he would just literally walk home, or possibly in his Rolls Royce, because he had a Rolls Royce car. He was a splendid man, and further evidence too of the link with Lewis, which I know people will be interested in, because after all, this is Lewis television. Remember that. This I brought with me finally, which is a gramophone record, and it is a record of Max Miller, and I will get it out of its sleeve. And there it is, ladies and gentlemen. It's on HMV, his master's voice. And it says on here, Max Miller with the Forces. And I've mentioned this before on Mirador. But the fact is that Max did appear in this town on more than one occasion. And in fact, this is the recording of that appearance. Would you believe? In 1941. Long time ago. So.
Well, it is. If the one-man show is recorded on Mirador, then in the archives will be John Henty next to Max Miller.
What a wonderful thought. Yes, I can imagine everybody saying, really? Are you sure about this, you see? I mean, Judge, just careful.
You have been an impresario before with your one-man show on...
the woman, Mabel Lucy Atwell, of course.
Well, yes, but also on The Snowman.
Raymond Briggs. Oh, yes. All wonderful people, and no longer with us. Of course, the other person was my lovely, lovely friend, Spike Milligan. I mean, Hannah Fox. I love Spike Milligan as well.
Yes.
So, yes, it's always a joy to recount these things. And obviously, any opportunity, and this is a good opportunity. Thank you very much indeed, Keith.
It is indeed.
Yes, I think that's almost everything in here. And there is, people may think, what's he look like, Max Miller? Well, there he is. It's pretty obvious what he looks like. And you can see he's got a lovely tie on there. He had a whole range of ties. And what did he do? At home, he had lots of parrots. He had lots of parrots at home in cages. I don't know why that was. But there we are. Spike Milligan.
Your tie isn't too far away from a Max Miller tie.
Well, exactly right. That's why I wore it. I wore it today because I was coming here, and I knew that we liked a little bit of colour in our television, and I thought equally it should be worn at the Hippodrome, and I wore it there as well, so which is lovely.
Absolutely.
It's nice to be here. It's nice to be anywhere.
The sun is shining outside.
It is.
Not for long, but it is at the moment.
The weather.
And to look outside and see the courthouse bathed in sunlight
it's lovely.
Is a joy.
There's a person in spangles over there. I don't know what they're doing.
In spangles?
Yes, all sort of...
Oh, right.
Is that... he's vaping.
Vaping.
He's a vapor.
Right.
I've never vaped myself.
No, normally.
Never the need to. Woodbines.
I think it's a she, actually.
Sorry, yes. Very dangerous area. Actually, no. Yes, we cover a wide range of things, and it's a joy to be able to do this. We'd love you to participate as well. If you remember Max Miller, well, let me know, let Keith know. We could spread the message as well. It's important. And so too is the theatre.
In fact, let me say to you that anybody who's passing on a Wednesday around about 10:30 is very welcome to come in and join John.
Yes.
Plenty of Henty, and believe me, he is a joy to talk to.
Well,
so do pop in.
Pop in, that's it. That's a good one, pop in. Yes, I'm not sure that once having seen this, they'll probably think, well, will we get a word in edgeways? I mean, if he keeps talking, he never stops, which is not true, of course.
No, you stop, you pause for a moment or two here and there.
I mean, a whole week goes by and you've got so many things to talk about. When you think about it, you talk about the weather. I mean, last time I was here, I was discussing the weather and saying, for goodness sake, all these people at Gatwick Airport, if you remember, sadly going off to these incredibly hot places, which is fine. And I said, well, why don't you stay at home? And people keep saying, oh, I don't like this changeable weather. I love this change. Do you like this change?
Absolutely.
Oh,
yes. I mean, I like surprises. I like waking up in the morning and seeing that it hasn't rained, or that it has rained, or that it is raining. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's the way to do the forecast. I'm sure you have the forecast here. And some, I mean, that's another thing that really puzzles me, It's these people who do the forecasting on television. I met one of them once. I was at, standby, name dropping. I was at Television Centre. Oh, Television Centre. Appearing in something, were you, John? No. I was there actually to audition for a sort of do the links between the programmes, which, by the way, are absolutely dreadful these days. I mean, the programmes aren't very good. But the links, I can't understand what these people say.
You're absolutely right.
Oh, they shout.
As an art, it has gone.
Oh, God, they shout and there's music and the rest
Continuity, they used to call it.
Oh, indeed. Well, I did plenty of that. I mean, I tell the story of how when I was at Radio 2 for a short time, I was the continuity man and I had to sit down in a rather soulless basement while Jimmy Young upstairs went on and on. You think I go on? Do you remember Jimmy? You do remember Jimmy. I try to tell you I'm too young. I used to be down there, and if anything dreadful happened to Jimmy Young in the middle of the program, they would suddenly cut to me. And I had gramophone records all ready to play and the rest of it. So Jimmy Young and continuity, it's not much of a job, but it's a job. So I went over there. I thought television, I might possibly, but this was long before Mirador, you see. And I thought, well, if I make enough appearances and wear the right sort of glasses, I might get a sort of job linking programs and maybe even appear. Who knows? It didn't happen. But the man I did actually meet there was the weather forecaster, whose name again now escapes me after all these years. The one who said that it was going to be an absolutely catastrophic weather.
Wasn't Michael Fish, was it?
Michael Fish.
Aha.
I'm the man who met Michael Fish. Oh, tell us about it, John. I can't, because it was very brief. He was very pleasant. Most of these people are, actually. Yes. Have you noticed that? If they approach them. And I didn't say, why did you get that forecast wrong? Funnily enough, I just said, how are you, Michael? And he said, fine. How are you? That's the extent of the conversation. Rather like the conversation I had with Michael Caine once when I was walking across Piccadilly and he crossed and I recognized him and I said, hello. And he said, hello. That's lovely, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I mean, there's a memory for you, you see. I mean, who wants long conversation when everything can be said in one word?
Absolutely.
Hello. It's lovely. Hello.
Yes.
Parrot, you see.
Yes. And it's easy to keep in an archive.
It is indeed. I mean, it's short and sweet.
Absolutely.
It's like him and me, I suppose you could safely say. So we do rabbit on a bit. No one could deny that. We were talking about the weather, and I got my own views about that, of course, how holidays at home, which I think would be a splendid idea. And I don't know, we're just here for you. That's it, you out there. And we want you to remember the good things. His singing, I'm not sure. I don't remember any other songs. I can't remember any other songs, really. We did try singing last week, and I thought several people actually went click, which, of course, is How to Stop Me, by the way. Did I tell you that?
Right, clicking.
Yes. No, this goes back to when I was a very small child, and if I've told this story, it's not really surprising because I'm not proud of it. But my mum and dad, they probably love me, but to such an extent that they sort of went to bed, or at least I went to bed, and they sat in the other room listening to the radio, of course. This was during the war. And I would be my own little radio station, you see. So I would do my own voices. I'd do the sound of applause and laughter and the whole range of things. And this was all right, except it was a bungalow, so they could hear all of this. And there they were trying to listen to the 9 o'clock news. And so we came to an arrangement that when they thought that I'd done enough, they would shout down the corridor, click, and I would stop.
You stopped.
And I've told audiences that, and the good advice to you. The only thing is don't switch off, because that would be a pity. And this is television, not radio.
Yeah, right.
But the fact is, if you think I've gone on too long, write a letter to your local MP. Tell this gentleman here, splendid man. And also, of course, just go click. That's all you have to do, and I will stop.
Right.
We'll try it a bit later on, because I think we're almost there now.
We are, but before we click, Mr. Chairman of the Stephen Catlin Appreciation Society and Resurrection of the Secret Garden, I would like to report to you that I found us a gardener.
Very good. Well, I would like to tell you something else about that very briefly. We know that it's going to be next Wednesday. It's going to be at the town hall. It's a celebration of the life of Mr. Stephen Catlin. And I will say this, that I'm always happy to be chairman of anything, to be perfectly honest. Nice to be recognised. But basically, I'm saying that there are people organising, There's a gentleman, I think, called Dino Bishop, I think that's
yes.
right. Well, I understand he's got things going very well. I'm always delighted to hear this, Keith. I have to tell you this because I'm not a great organiser anyway.
No.
So this fellow Dino seems to be doing everything. He's put a lovely poster up, so look out for the poster, folks.
Yes.
It's there as well.
Yes.
It's going to be a splendid evening. There's going to be poetry and the whole sort.
Yes.
And apparently there may be reference to the gardener and the flower pot or the watering can. We hope so.
We hope so, yes.
But at the moment, I'm basically, if you don't mind my saying so, and I'm very good at doing this, I'm saying, well, go on, chaps, you do it, and I give you my support.
Well, I mean, I'm very happy, and I've said so publicly several times, for Dino and his concert party, and I think it's excellent that Stephen is being honoured in this way. Ours is rather more permanent. It will take a while. I think that where it suits you admirably is you're excellent at getting other people to do things, and this is what it will demand as chairman.
Yes.
But the garden, I am told, and I haven't been past it recently, is in pretty bad shape. So hopefully that in 10 years' time, people will be much like Max Miller saying, "Aha, that is the Catlin Garden," and be able to tell us. While I appreciate very much the concert, it is a sort of a fleeting thing. It will be forgotten in 6 months' time.
No, absolutely right. It is crucial.
So Henty as chairman is absolutely vital.
Thank you for that vote of confidence.
Right.
However, let me say too that if there is to be a garden, and in 10 years' time, and there is to be a bench, there's talk of a bench as well, then perhaps they could have 2 old codgers sitting in bronze, sitting on that bench.
Like a watering can.
Yeah, you and me. I'm quite prepared to pose anywhere. I'm a great, apart from being a great thespian, I'm also a poser. I heard that, madam. That is entirely uncalled for. So there we are. Yes, I'm quite prepared. I need to keep my clothes on, if you don't mind, for reasons that I'd rather not disclose at the moment. But I only take small parts.
I'm quite happy as long as I can keep my hat on.
Well, I'm not sure about. I need to consult with my representatives here, but I think they might advise against anything. Or maybe we could have it done.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Oh my goodness me, yes. Well, because we do both
That's
wear
the power you have, you see.
Oh no. I think it's a thought too far, to be perfectly honest with you. Well, I think that's it.
Yes, I think we wish for Wednesday night. We hope that everything goes very well.
Oh, absolutely.
And it is fitting that Stephen Catlin should be honoured in this way.
Here.
And we hope that our longer-term plan to make sure that he is not forgotten, because too often people are forgotten. I remember the great joy and delight when my late wife and I found ourselves in King's Lynn, and she looked towards the end of the pier there. And King's Lynn has become a little bit run down now. And she saw a statue and she said, "I know who that is." And she roared. I mean, she really raced along to the end of the pier and stood in awe at the statue because it was Captain George Vancouver. And of course, Valley was from Vancouver.
Oh, my goodness.
So statues do work, and they do carry the memories down and across oceans.
Well, that's why we've got the Max Miller, but also a theatre in its way is a permanent thing. And that's why, just to go back seriously for a moment, listen, folks, think seriously about the Brighton Hippodrome. It needs your support, and it needs the support of Brighton Council.
And seriously, we shall try to take John's one-man show there. I don't know how much organising that will take, but we'll certainly investigate.
Oh, dear, oh dear. I don't know how we're going to cope in all these various things that you're devising here, Keith.
Well, let's face it, we're not going to go to the place where all the fires are at the moment, so we might as well do things at home.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. I wondered what you meant by the place where all the fires are. I thought you meant down below.
Well,
we don't go there either.
As well.
That's it, really, isn't it? It's going to be a toodle pip time.
It is toodle pip time.
Oh.
John, thank you very much for another entertaining morning, and
thank you for watching.
I just wish that you brought the dog this morning. Say toodle pip, John.
Toodle pip, John. That was